So,
Okay.
hi everybody, and hello, Debra Murphy.
Hi.
Hi, this is Beth Jordan with Authors Chat, Beth Jordan, and this is very excited, my 13th episode of doing a presentation for self-published authors for my YouTube channel, Beth Jordan, at Beth Jordan 23. So I want to extend a very, very warm welcome to Debra Murphy, whom I met through Write That Book Masterclass with Michael Heppel. I didn't meet you directly, but we were part of the same group. Yeah.
Yes, we
So,
were. Yeah.
so Debra, welcome and hello.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Yes. Yeah.
My absolute pleasure. So I think many of you listeners might already be very familiar with Debra Murphy and her very wonderful book, Beatrix, the Time-Traveling Collie. But there's a whole lot more to Debra that I really wanted to explore today, rather than just talking about her book about Beatrix, which is a truly beautiful story and which I've actually read in great detail. Almost every word, maybe a few I skipped, Debra. Sorry about that. So let's begin, Debra. Let's begin, first of all, by tell us about you. Yeah, a bit about your background, where you come from, where you're living now. Tell us about Debra Murphy.
Yeah. So I'm a Yorkshire girl. I was born in Halifax in West Yorkshire. And there is a saying that you can take the girl out of Yorkshire, but you can't take Yorkshire out of the girl.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So I am, yeah, I am that. I'm living up in Scotland for the best part of 20 years now.
Okay.
And I've convinced myself that I've got a Scottish accent, but nobody else seems to think so.
I wonder
So
why.
yeah, yeah. And I've always been an active person. I mean, I grew up in the Yorkshire Dales, in the Pennines, and so walking, cycling, it was always one of my loves. And eventually, when I came up to Scotland, I carried on with that. And I used to think the hills of the Dales and the lakes were amazing, but to come up to Scotland and start climbing the Munros, it was just like,
Yeah.
it was just like nothing. I said, and the views. I believe you've done some of
Yes.
the Munros, and the views that you get from the top are just like, you just can't compare. It's like having the
Yeah.
world, standing looking down on the world, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing. So
Just out of interest, how many Munros have you climbed so far?
oh, do you know what? I've never actually counted them. I don't know. Probably 20.
20. I
If
think
that.
I've done 3.
Yeah, but I tend to do, I find ones that I like, so I might go up those. The problem is with the Munros is that they're so remote,
Yeah.
so it takes you so long to actually get to them,
Yes.
that I try to do them where I can be there and back in the same day, which is not
Yeah.
always possible from where I am in central Scotland.
Yeah.
So you're kind of limited, and I don't. I'm not a Munro bagger, because if you only aim to go to the Munros, you miss out some fabulous walks.
Yeah.
One of my favourite ones, and actually it was one of Beatrix's favourite walks, is Ben Ledi, just outside Callendar. That's not a Munro, but it is just the most amazing walk. And
Hmm.
Beatrix loved it. And you could see when she was in the car and we were driving there, she'd be sitting up in the back of the car going, "Oh, I know where we're going. I know where we're going."
Yeah.
She just absolutely loved it. And I think probably because she was off the lead right from the car,
Yeah.
so she didn't have to be on the lead at all.
Yeah.
Um, and the views at the top of there are as good as the top of any Munro. You look out onto Loch Rannoch and everywhere, and if you on a really good day, you can probably see Ben Nevis as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's quite a distance, isn't it?
Mm,
It really is.
yes.
Because I thought in Port
Yeah.
William on the West Coast.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you get such a good view. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's me. So my background was in learning and development,
Mhm.
and I started off in the admin department, and then developed into becoming a trainer and an assessor, and then I went to night school, night class, and I got my teacher certificate.
Okay.
And then I opened my own training company when I was up in Scotland.
Oh, did you
So
really?
I did, yes. So we had
Oh,
our own vocational training company and first
okay.
aid training company. And so writing was always part of me, whether
Hmm.
it was writing policies and procedures, but having to sit down and write reports or any new policies and procedures, that just wasn't a problem for me. It was like,
Yeah.
all right, okay, so you want me to write that? Oh, how many words would you like it to be? So I've always been involved in that. So
Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah.
so your writing has been very much a part of you. So words have been very much a part of your life, or
Mhm.
expressing, trying to find the right words to, especially for policy, trying to find the right
Yes.
words so that people really understand what it
Hmm.
is that they have to know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the work that you were doing previously, how did you then come to set up your magical tea room?
So having my own tea room was an all-time dream of mine. But I never thought it would be something
Hmm.
that would happen. And although I'm from Yorkshire, my grandma, so my dad and his family are Scottish actually.
Okay.
And so but they always lived in Halifax all my life.
Yeah.
And my grandma was just like the best person ever, as grandmas are. And every week when I went to see her, on a Sunday, she'd tell me about the trips that her and my granddad had been out on the Saturday.
Hmm.
And as pensioners, they used to go out, they didn't have to pay on the bus, so they used to go
Yeah.
out everywhere. And they'd go to a cafe or a tea shop or somewhere. And she'd tell me about everything that she'd done and what she liked and what she didn't like about particular cafes.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, do you know what? I'd just love to be able to open a tea room that grandma would love to be in, and that
Yeah.
that she'd be proud of. And things like she only ever drank out of a china cup. She wouldn't drink tea out of anything else. She had her own china cup and saucer at home, and woe betide anybody that actually tried to drink
Yeah.
out of
I like
hers.
your grandma. She had taste.
Yes, yeah. And so she lived until her late 80s, and she smoked probably, I don't know. I don't know how many she smoked a day, but it was like the Capstan Woodbine full strength
Oh,
cigarettes and she used
yeah.
to send me to the shop to go and buy them for
Yeah.
her. But I never saw her eat a meal. I only ever saw her eating. Have jam sandwiches. She'd have Scottish pancakes with butter on them, tea and cakes, biscuits. I never saw her eat a meal, and I used to think, well, if my grandma lived that long and she smoked, I could live on tea and cakes. Because I don't smoke and I very, very rarely drink. I thought I could live on tea and cakes and live forever. Yeah. So yeah, so when the opportunity arose,
Yeah.
I kind of took it, I'd been ill and that gave me a little bit of a wake-up call. And I was like, do you know what? You're only here once. So I decided I was going to follow my dream and open this tea room.
Okay.
And we did, and we opened this little tea room, but I didn't want it to be a Costa where you're going, no disrespect to Costa,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to be one where you go in and you buy your coffee and your cake. You get the same cake every time because they
Hmm.
only sell the
Yeah.
same things
Yeah.
each week. So but you know what you're going for. Oh, I
Yeah.
must go to Costa because I want
Yeah. Sure.
whatever.
Sure.
I wanted it to be somewhere where you'd come in and you didn't know what cake you were going to get because
Mm.
I didn't know which cake I was going to make until the night before,
Right. Okay.
So I did all the baking and but I wanted it to be somewhere where people would come and they would chat to each other. I
Yeah.
didn't want it to be just a very unsocial place.
Hmm.
And with my love of books, we had a little tea room library
Yeah.
within the tea room. We had crafting because I know the benefits of the mental health benefits of
Yeah.
crafting,
Yeah.
no matter what it is. And so we introduced craft classes. We had people coming in and teaching us all different things.
Yeah.
We had people teaching us how to make candles, and shower gels and everything, crochet. Somebody
Hmm.
taught me to crochet in the tea
Yeah.
room. because I'm left-handed, so I
Yeah.
found it hard. And we had different events, and we'd have an afternoon tea for 16. So we'd close the tea room, and we'd have a themed thing. So one of the best ones was a Britain at War afternoon tea, and everybody came in dressed up. You
Yeah.
know, we had one man came and he had an admiral's uniform on that he'd borrowed from his friend who used to be an admiral.
Wow.
You know, and it was
Yeah.
just that, and it was just amazing. You know, and Jim, my husband, he used to play the guitar, so he'd take the guitar in and we'd sing songs, and well, noise would come out of my mouth. I wouldn't call
Yes.
it singing.
Okay.
But by me singing, even though I know I can't sing,
Mm.
that actually allowed other people to go, actually, do you know what? Singing is just about having fun. It doesn't matter whether
Yes.
you're in key,
Yeah.
you know. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jim would very often say to me, and which key are you singing in? And I'd say, whichever key comes out of my mouth is the key I'll be singing it in,
You're
you
gonna have to
know.
play the guitar to match my
Yes, that's
tone.
right. That's right. So yeah, and it was kind of that sort of tea room.
Yeah.
And we were called Mother Murphy's Tea Room, but we were on a bit of a hill.
Yeah.
Not much of a bit of a hill. And then we started getting called the tea room on the hill.
Ah.
So that was that. But then the customers started changing us, and they actually nicknamed us the magical tea room on the hill.
Ah. So that's how
Um,
it happened. I
yes.
was going to ask you actually, Deborah, Mother Murphy, how did that name come around?
So that was a strange one as well, because before we opened the tea room, I thought what I needed to do was check that actually people liked my cakes,
Yeah.
because it's one thing my children saying, "Oh, mummy, your cakes are really nice,"
Hmm.
but for other people to actually spend their hard-earned money on my cakes,
Hmm.
what I had to do was make sure they liked them.
Hmm.
So in amongst running the training company, I started up a home baking business, and we were doing farmers markets and
Hmm.
the likes, and Highland Games and going out and having stalls. But I couldn't think of a name, and we were trying to think of a good name. And my son at the time, Benjamin, he was living down in London, and he sent me a Mother's Day card,
Yeah.
and on the envelope, Mother Murphy.
Ah,
And I was like, that's it. That's
wow.
it. Because obviously
Okay. I
Murphy's
like
Murphy's my
that.
surname. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the
And
way
I
it
was just
sounds.
like, that's it. That's it,
Yeah.
Mother Murphy's. And it became Mother Murphy's, you know, and
Yeah.
as soon as that had come, I was like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
believe you told me that Beatrix would occasionally come into the tea room because it wasn't very big, so you weren't able to have too many dogs, but she would come in as well.
she would, yeah. So we only had 16 seats, so it was a very small place.
Hmm.
And I was aware that not everybody likes dogs.
Hmm.
And it's such a small area that we couldn't let dogs come in much as we
Hmm.
wanted to, because it would have been great to have Beatrix there all the time. But it would have made some people uncomfortable
Yeah.
to have dogs there, and they would have been like, well, we don't really want to go there because that dog might be there. And so we
Mhm.
decided, let's not make it dog friendly.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, if maybe we couldn't get the dog walker, who was fabulous, but sometimes we couldn't get the dog walker, so sometimes we'd bring her in, or maybe I'd just bring her in for an hour or so,
Yeah.
and she'd kind of sit there and she'd look at everybody, she'd drool at everybody's food, which is another reason why we didn't bring her in, because
Yeah.
she was just,
Yeah.
yeah. But she was, the customers loved her, and they got to know her
Yeah.
because of my blogs that I did about adventures that we were having.
Ah,
And
okay. So I
yes.
can see the connections
Mhm.
now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were closed on a Monday and a Tuesday.
Hmm.
And on a Wednesday, we'd get people coming in saying, where did you go this weekend? What did you do? What adventures did you get up to?
Ah,
What mishaps did you have? Because very often we had adventures that
yeah.
went wrong.
Hmm. But
Yeah.
you wrote your book, The Magical Tea Room on the Hill first, didn't you? Recipes, tales, and
Yes.
adventures.
Yeah. So
You had time to write a book as well.
yes. So
Wow.
I'd started writing the book because we used to cater for gluten and dairy free.
Hmm.
So most of the tea room menu was gluten and dairy free. Excuse me. So I'd started writing all the recipes out, because what I wanted was that if I made the cake
Yeah.
and then Jim made the cake, it would be more or less the same.
Yeah.
Every baker types bakes slightly different.
Yeah.
So customers could tell if I'd made it or if Jim had made it, you know.
Okay.
But it would contain the same ingredients.
Yeah.
So that if somebody said, what has this cake got in it? We could tell them exactly what it had in it. So I'd already started typing them out, and they had, they were all in a big folder. And I was like, do you know what? I could start typing these up and making a little book out of them. And I just kind of played about with the idea, and I thought, so in the tea room, all the cakes were named after customers. So if you came in, Beth, and your favorite cake was a custard cream, it become Beth's custard cream.
Wow.
So all cakes were named after somebody, and that generated a story. So I then started typing the stories to go with the recipes.
Can I just say that is wonderful marketing as well. You're bringing your customers right into the heart of everything, and they're going to just stay loyal to you forever and ever.
Yes, yeah, they did. And that wasn't the reason for doing it. It was just the look on somebody's face when they saw that I'd named a cake after them.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't tell them, and they just used to come in, and there'd be the little notice, and you've named it after me, you know. So so then I started making the stories up about the people and about why we'd chosen it as their cake. And that's when the idea of doing the book, and I was like, this could be a book for customers to read when they come into the tea room.
Yeah.
So I'd started writing it, and it was well on its way to being finished. And then along came COVID in 2020, and originally we had to close.
Yes.
You know, and we thought it was just going to be a little temporary thing, and we did lots of actually every night we were doing a live a Facebook Live, so that because customers who were used to being able to come to the tea room were now isolated.
Yeah.
So we were doing Facebook Lives. They were quite mad things, and we never knew what we were going to be talking about. And so you should go and watch some of those, because they are so funny.
Are they on your website?
On the Facebook.
On the Facebook, okay, all right.
On the Facebook, yes. And they pop up every now and again as a memory for me as well. And I listen, and I'm like, crikey, we were just so you know, just trying to keep ourselves entertained as well. So while the tea room was closed, I kind of got the book finished, just about finished, and I was like, you know, how am I going to go about getting it published?
Yeah.
And then we had to make the decision to actually close the tea room permanently, because the social distancing was just going on for so long, and it wasn't viable for us to do social distancing in a tea room that only had 16 people. Plus we lived in Kirkintilloch, the tea room was in Falkirk, so we couldn't, and we didn't want to be a takeaway place. We weren't a takeaway place.
Yeah.
You know, I want to sit down and share tea and cakes with people. I don't just want to sell tea and cakes to people.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I got chatting to Business Gateway, who were helping us kind of reinvent the business as a takeaway, not as a takeaway, as an online business to sell the cakes online. And I was talking to her about the book, and she said, oh, I know somebody who does who helps people self-publish, and got in touch with them, Indie Authors World, and she came along, and we published my first book with that. So and that was, I don't know if that shows, so that's the magical tea. I don't know how to get, oh, there we go, the magical tea.
And I can see Beatrix there as well.
Yep, Beatrix there. Yep. And on the back of the book, there's Jim, who used to go in and play his guitar, and and it's huge. You know, I don't think people realize how big a book it is until they actually see it. You know, it's huge. It's full of recipes, tales, adventures, and photographs, and it's a big
wonderful
book.
way. It's a wonderful way that you've taken such a vast experience of yours, and in a relatively short space of time, you've created magic. It's not just the magic of the tea room, it's about food, eating, people, socializing. Beatrix, her presence there. Now, I
Yes.
want you to tell me a little bit about Beatrix, whom I absolutely adore. And I must say to the listeners that I have actually read Beatrix, a time traveling collie. And I said this to Deborah before, that I've always loved collies. It was one of my favorite dogs. If I ever had a dog, I'd have a collie. I just love, they're so highly intelligent. They really are. And
Way more intelligent than us.
oh,
Yeah.
I watch them with the sheep locally where I live. And
Yeah.
just the way they will just go hunker right down on the grass and just sit and
Yes.
wait.
Yeah.
And then they go, shh,
Yeah.
shh. But
Yes.
what
Yeah.
that book did for me, I wanted to say this before you talk a little bit about, because your book is a wonderful story, not just about Beatrix and the adventures, but it's about almost showing the human element of a dog like Beatrix, what she
Yeah.
did for, I'd say for you and Jim, the love
Yeah.
she gave, the companionship that she gave. And when I read the
Yeah.
book, first in fall, I said, where's this time traveling thing? I can't see this happening. So I had to be very patient. And one day I turned the page and then, here it is. This is
Yeah.
why it's called the time traveling collie. So
Yes.
tell us how that story came about.
So, in the first book, in the magical tea room in the hill, Beatrix stars in quite a few, and there were lots of our adventures that we had. One of them includes, so I used to go walking up the Munros with just Beatrix,
Yeah.
because I like the solitude, and I'd choose a time when it was just us, and that's why when we were closed Mondays and Tuesdays was great, because we didn't have the hordes of people that you would have got if I'd have gone walking on a Saturday or a Sunday. And in August 2013, we'd gone up one Munro, we'd gone up Ben Glass, and we're just going to start going up Ben Laws, and totally out of the blue, I took a heart attack.
Yeah.
Just like that. Totally unexpected. And I'd already said that we ran a first aid training company. So I knew exactly what was happening, because every sign and symptom of a heart attack I was having that day. And I was like, oh gosh, this can't be happening. So I kind of took myself back down the hill a different way, thinking I just need to have my lunch. I'm obviously hungry, which clearly I wasn't. But by taking myself down the hill a little bit, I actually took myself out of mobile signal. So there I was, me and Beatrix, and no mobile signal, and I was having a heart attack. And I was like, right, okay, what we're gonna do now? And so by which time I was on the floor, and Beatrix was obsessed with sticks and stones. And if you were ever upset, Beatrix would bring you a stone. Because that made everything okay. So I was on the floor, and Beatrix kept bringing me all these stones and putting them on my chest. That was already feeling like an elephant was sitting on it. And I was like, no, please not. But she realised then that something was wrong with Mum. And she went away and she started barking. She wasn't a dog that barked. She went back and she was barking like a mad dog, let's say. And even I could, and I was like, gosh, that is so loud what she's barking. And she went away, and she found all different people that were not connected. They were all walking individually. There was a retired GP, there was a midwife, there was a medic from the Navy, and there was somebody else that was connected with first aid. And she gathered all these people.
She herded them. She shepherded them.
Yeah, just amazing. And I had to be airlifted off the Munro, and I was taken away to hospital up at Dundee, up at Ninewells. And Jim, who was at home making marmalade that day, he got the phone call saying, by the way, your wife's had a heart attack. She's now being flown up to Ninewells Hospital, but the car and the dog are up in Glen Lyon. What are you going to do? So he had to decide whether he was going to come and see me having a heart attack, or whether he was going to go and get the dog and the car. and he chose the dog and the car, which
Okay.
actually I would have wanted him to,
Yeah.
because I was okay. I was being looked after.
Yes.
Beatrix would have been scared.
Mm.
So that story I told in the magical tea room on the hill, and you know, it's quite a moving story, and but it's also a story about the support that the tea room family gave me as well, because they were just amazing. But then when lockdown had happened and then the book came out, and Beatrix, being a very clever collie, was sitting next to me, and she said, "You know, Mum," she said, "that's not really what happened up that hill." She said, "Would you like me to tell you what it was really like?" And she told it me in her own words.
Wow.
And I started writing it down.
Yeah.
And so rewriting it from the whole point of view of a dog.
Yeah.
And a very clever dog.
Yeah.
And that story upset me more than my story, because it made me realize how vulnerable Beatrix was that day.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, the person that she was with was gone.
Yes, they've gone.
You know, the helicopter
Oh,
had taken me away.
yeah.
She didn't know whether she was going to see me again. And you know, and in the book, when she's talking and she's saying about how sad Dad was when he came and collected her, and she thought he was cross with her
Yeah.
because she hadn't saved me. She'd allowed somebody to take me away.
Mm.
And then because I was up in Ninewells for a few days, and Jim came and stayed up in the Premier Lodge up there. So Beatrix had to go and stay with Jim's brother.
Yeah.
And she writes about that, saying, "Gosh, he must really hate me."
Oh, I
Because
remember that part.
he doesn't even want me at home now.
Yeah.
You know, so it was that. And so seeing it from that point of view, and then for weeks and months afterwards, Beatrix was traumatized by helicopters.
Yes.
And I remember one time one came down quite low by us, and she was on the floor on her stomach, because she was like, "Gosh, you know."
Yeah, she remembered it very well.
Yeah. So that came
I
about,
think
and then
that's what's really very revealing, the way you have written. It's not just a story, like a magical story of a collie. It's you've really shown the depth of Beatrix or dog's feelings, that they have
yes,
such deep feelings. And I think those who really love dogs and understand them truly do understand the depth of feeling that the animals have. And I have a story, but I won't say now, about an alien who saw a hunter shoot a deer, and he puts the pain of the deer into the hunter's head for the hunter to realize what he'd actually done.
Yeah.
And so I think when listeners or when readers read your book, I hope it will transform many of their attitudes if they don't if they're not very keen on dogs, as an example.
Yeah.
But they love
Well, Beatrix was my first dog.
was she now?
And yes, she was. And Jim,
Ah.
you know, I decided I was going to get her a few years ago. I'd had to have abdominal surgery, and so I was not able to walk very far. And I thought, if I get a puppy, she'll grow up, and we'll get strong together.
Yes.
So she was my first dog, and never in a million years would I realize what the relationship we would have with each other, and how much unconditional love a dog can give you. And I'll just show you the picture on the back of the book.
Yes. If you just raise it a little higher. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Oops, now I can see it. Yes.
That's my favorite.
You've gone away,
where have
Deborah.
Oh,
come back. It's magic. You just created some magic.
Magic. Well, it is the magical tea room on the hill.
Deborah, do you think you could read a small chapter or a paragraph to really express the book?
So what I thought was, so the first part of the book is all true stories. So it's from when Beatrix was a little puppy at home.
Yeah.
And then we came with these cruel humans came and took her away.
Yeah.
But then she became a human dog, and she quite liked being a human dog. although she did have a she kind of took after me in that she was quite cheeky about Jim, you know, and that hopefully that comes across in the
It
book.
certainly does.
Yeah,
I think poor
yeah,
Jim.
yeah. And what the other thing that I hoped to do in the book, and I hope this comes across, is that because she's telling the story, so she's a puppy to start with.
Yeah.
So she talks like a puppy.
Yes.
But as the book went on
Yes.
and she was an older dog,
Yeah.
she was talking more like and she was thinking like an adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
It comes through very well.
Yeah. And so the middle of the middle section is about her time traveling journeys. And so what I thought was I'd read a little section out of the chapter where she goes to Grasmere in the Lake District,
yes.
which it's one of my favourite places, and it became one of Jim's favourite places. And Beatrix loved it. We took her there every year, and she just knew her way around and everything. And this kind of takes away, talks about how she does her time traveling. So as the years passed and I settled into my life as a human dog, I also became familiar with that inner need of being needed somewhere. Sorry, with that inner feeling of being needed somewhere. It always filled me with a trepidation about where I'll go and why. As I live in a home filled with love and security, there's also an element of sadness. Would the journey be a one-way trip? Would I become lost along the way and not find my way home to Mum and Dad? One blissful afternoon, as I watched Mum create something with her woolen stick, that was the crocheting, I got that deep feeling in my tummy again. I had to go. Somebody needed me. Taking a last look at Mum sitting crocheting in the lounge, I began to chase my tail. Slowly at first, but then gathering speed as I ran in small circles. The rug ruffled beneath me as my paws struggled to keep a firm grip on it. I must remember to step off the rug before the next trip. As the rug got pushed to one side and I was about to catch my tail, I caught a glimpse of Mum, who, looking up from her crochet, gave me a sad smile. Every time I head out for another adventure, I wonder if the sight of my tail chasing fills Mum with pride, knowing that I'm going to help somebody, or with sadness because she doesn't know what I'm heading into, or know for sure I'll return safely to her once again. For me, everything became blurred as a mist developed around me, accompanied by a gentle humming. A bright light shone in the distance. As I finally caught my tail, I gave a little yelp and let go. The spinning stopped, the mist cleared, the humming ceased, and I was running into the bright light. I looked around and sniffed the air. Where was I? It smelt familiar. Clean country smells with a hint of ginger wafted in the air. Slate buildings were everywhere, and I was in a garden raised up from the road. I'd been here before. I was sure of it. Sitting down, I allowed the smells and sounds to register. That's it, I realised. This was April Cottage, in Mum's favourite place, Grasmere, in the Lake District. I'd been here many times before with Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
And you'll have to read it to find out why she's had to go to the Lake District.
I have read it, but I'm not
she's
going
to
say
save.
anything. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There is there is a little piece that I pulled out, and it said, "Mum and Dad are so alike. I'm surprised she hasn't grown a black and white coat."
Yes.
I love that. And it's like, but if I'm human, why aren't you looking like me?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And she does. She kind of talks. So I think what he said was that me and Mum are so alike, not Mum and Dad.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Me and
Yeah.
Mum, you're right. Me and Mum are so
me and
alike.
Mum are so alike.
Yes.
And so we were like soulmates, really, you know, and everything. Yeah. But we were totally, you know, she talks about me and Jim being like chalk and cheese.
Yes.
And we really were, you know.
Yeah.
There's one bit where we're going on a train and she's talking about how I'm always talking about, oh, there's such and such a hill, and saying
Yeah.
where we're going and everything, and Dad just rolls his eyes and eats his Kit Kat, you know.
I think your book, Beatrix, the time traveling collie, is filled with so many gems. Um, it's not just a magical story about where she goes and how she helps so
Mhm.
many different people in different situations and comes back. I
Yeah.
think it's that love and trust that you have for each other, and just to see the world through a dog's eyes as well. You know, we
Yes.
often, I think, as human beings, so
Mhm.
conceited and self-centered, we think only we can see. But
Yes.
those of us who are, I'm going to be a bit arrogant and say more aware, are aware that
Uh-huh.
animals, creatures have a very fine perception of the world around
Yes.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
They
think you
do.
really highlight that, and it's a
Mhm.
wonderful story. I must say, I haven't read The Magical Tea Room on the Hill, but I will now be definitely inclined to do so. I want to
Yep.
hear your stories. I've read Beatrice's
Uh-huh.
stories and her versions.
Yep.
Now I want to read yours as well. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what would you like your or the listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Um, I think that what I hope, and what I hope other people will get, is that writing can help. Writing can take you away to it can you can get lost when you're writing,
Hmm.
but also it can help you as you're writing.
Yeah,
But reading can also be an escape.
yeah,
You know, just get something and read it, and whether it be my book, whether it be another book,
yeah,
but pick something and have a selection of books, so that sometimes you're reading maybe difficult to read books, but intermingle those with books like Beatrix's book, where it's it gives you that feel good factor. um and you know, if you can't get out onto the hills, you know, read a book like that takes you out. You
yes,
know, hopefully you'll be able to follow me as I go on the hills. And
yeah.
you know, if you can't get there, read a book that takes you there, and
Yeah.
just lose yourself in that book. Yeah.
Absolutely. The joy of reading is being able to be transported to places that you can't actually go to for whatever
Yes.
reason.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
a really great author has the ability to transport a reader to
Mhm.
wherever that
Yes.
author wants that reader to go. And in
Yeah.
fact, the reader, without realizing it, actually also wants to go. He's just
Yes.
gone with them. So
Yes.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the role of an author. What would you say the role of an author is? I shouldn't say, I'll ask you, what do you think the role of an author is?
Is to I would say the role of an author is to turn words into magic.
Mm.
Yeah, and just take people away, you know, make take people into a make-believe world, and um but one that's believable.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
transformative.
Yeah. And
So
I remember
transformative.
the one of the people that was proofreading
Mm.
Beatrix's book for me. So with proofreading, what you want to do is make sure that you're getting people who have no connection with you, that don't know it, that don't know the story, they don't
Yeah.
know what they're expecting. So they're reading it totally fresh.
Yeah.
And I picked this man, and his background, he used to work on the high up in the Scottish Rail.
Mm.
So I didn't know him. It was somebody that had introduced me to him.
Mm.
And so I'd sent him the book, and I didn't actually meet him until after he'd done the proofreading.
Mm.
And I met up with him, and he says, you know, Deborah, he said, when I found out that the book was about a time traveling collie who talks, because Beatrix talks the whole
Yes.
book, he said, I was like, oh my goodness me, how am I going to find this? And he says, but by the time I got to the end of the book, he says, I believe dogs can talk,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
And you know, it's so funny. We are coming to the end. I'm so sorry about that. But when I was watching the dogs on the beach in Goa when I was there on holiday, and also in the streets of Delhi, I looked at their faces and I saw their big smiles, their big mouths. I thought,
Yeah.
you're smiling. And I started to chat to one of them.
Yeah.
You kept looking at me this way and look at me that way.
Yeah.
And I thought, thank you, Beatrix,
Yes.
for giving
Yeah.
me an opportunity to not be so small-minded, but to actually open my mind
Yes.
to
Yeah.
street dogs, domesticated dogs, whatever, and to be able to be, for them to reveal themselves to me more
Yes.
than before. And I
Yeah.
think that is what your book has done for me.
It is.
And I
Yeah.
hope it'll do the same for other readers after they've listened to this video.
There is one bit in the book where Beatrix is talking to Beatrix's mum is talking to them as puppies, and she's saying to them, you know, if you find a human that can understand you,
Yeah,
and can talk to you, that human is worth their weight in gold, because
yeah,
they've got to truly want to be able to do it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Debra Murphy, author. I also know that you do proofreading and editing. So, for anybody who's interested, has written a book and would like that book either proofread or edited, just go on to mothermurphy.co.uk.
Mother Murphy's, yep, that's it. Yeah.
mothermurphys.co.uk website, and you can get information and go to Debra. Excuse me, I have a very bad cold today. But thank you, Debra, for coming and sharing your time with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The tea room. I'm going to have to come to your tea room very soon and meet your new beautiful colleague.
Well, you won't be able to come to the tea room because the tea room's closed.
Oh, you actually have closed it completely now?
Yes.
Ah,
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, the tea room had to close permanently in 2020.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come and have tea with you if I don't mind. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Debra, for a really wonderful, wonderful opportunity to chat with you, hear about your books, about your life and your adventures with the beautiful Beatrix. Thank you. And so,
thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to at Authors Chat, Beth Jordan 23. You can listen to this chat again on YouTube, which will be up in a couple of days' time. And wishing you well. And I presume there's going to be another book coming out at some point or the other.
There is. I'm well on my way with another book, which is called Campervan Capers. Have you turned the water on?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about having a camper van and all the things that I didn't know.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe we can have a chat about that later on as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Debra. Once again, thank you to everybody. And thank you for being part of Beth Jordan's Authors Chat, Beth Jordan. Thank you and bye for now.
Thank you.